Black is God podcast. Black is God podcast. Brother Charles 7X. Before we get started, I just want to open with, in the name of Allah, the beneficent and merciful, I like to bear witness there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. I would like to greet you all with the greeting words of Assalamu alaikum. That simply means peace. Peace be upon you. Peace to everybody inside the space, people. Peace to everybody who's checking out the Black is God podcast. You know, we're going to hop into episode 3. Episode 3. Secrets of Inner Earth. Secrets of Inner Earth. You know what I mean? I'm kind of excited about this one, you know, because I've been doing a lot of research. I've been doing lots of research on, you know, trying to get into this history of Moses and really working on the Black is God documentary, you know. And while working on it, you know, you get into some things that you don't really know about and some stuff that you don't understand, you know. And it'll lead you down this path of all these different kinds of books and different things that you'll find. And it's like as you go through these things, you kind of want to just share with people and show things. And you find these little secrets and little tidbits, you know. But I know a lot of people are saying, you know, Brother O.T.G, Brother Charles 7X, Brother 7 times. How is this actually help, you know? It's Thursday, September 16th, 2021. What does Inner Earth actually have to do with anything that we try and learn about? Like, I don't care about Agartha. I don't care about Inner Earth. Why are you trying to tell me about some aliens and some ant people? And I feel like this is why it matters, because in a world where all these things are going on, people are having problems, issues, life is happening, right? It's happening quickly. You know, you could tend to lose yourself and not know where you are. You're looking around outside, you're seeing all these things. And I think you need to have an understanding that you come from one of the smartest lineages of people, and some people that come right with the earth. And so what better way to get into it, you know? So let's hop right into it. When I was reading the Book of God by Dr. Wesley Muhammad, aka True Islam, you know, I had gotten to, there's a chapter in there that talks about the Earth King or the World King, and the 24 scientists, you know, and it talks about the space in Inner Earth where it says the 24 scientists reside. That's also where the mothership is. And that this is a place called Agartha or Shamballa. And the capital of this place is called Paradisia. You know, and in this place, there's the 23 scientists, and then Allah, the judge of them all. He sits on the high throne. And that there's thousands of people around him who essentially are the named Allah, you know. So, matter of fact, let's get to the book. You know, we'll go to the book. We'll read it real quick. You know, we want to get into that just a little bit so you can understand how he ended up here, because, you know, you got to give people the idea of how you ended up here. I don't want them just thinking you was just sitting around just like, what about Inner Earth? Wonder where that is, you know? So the chapter is on 183, and we'll just get into a little bit of it. You know, it says, one of the groups who are said to have had contact with Allah and his emissaries are the Lamas of Central Asia. One entrance to the hidden subterranean kingdom of God is said to be located north of the Gobi Desert. From there, the hidden doctorate of inner circle of humanity governs the affairs of men. This inner circle, according to the Lamas in the circle of 12 God-men called the Princes of Shamballa, are the Gurus of Agartha. These 12 owe allegiance to one man who is supreme in power, wisdom, and holiness. This one man is called the King of the World, or World King, or Brahma. From the hidden kingdom, the Brahma, or World King, judicates. Brahma, like Allah, is not a person, but a position or office like a presidency. The best knower among the gods is he who sits enthroned on his designated turn. One Lama said of the World King, he knows all the forces of the world and reads all the souls of humankind in the great book of their destiny. Invisibly, he rules 800 million men on the surface of the earth, and they will accomplish his every order. So I'm just going to stop there because, you know, we're going to go further into that in later episodes, but that gets us started. So, you know, I came across this book called The Kingdom of Agarda, A Journey into Hollow Earth by Alexander St. Eves. I also came across another one of his books called Mission of the Jews. And him and a guy named Osendowski are the two leaders of people who, and Madame Blavatsky, a Russian lady, they're the leaders of people who went out looking for inner earth. And so what we're going to get into today is from the Kingdom of Agartha and the Mission of Jews. Mission of the Jews. I thought it was quite interesting, some of the snippets that I got from these books from 1884. So first I wanted to get into the secret math. IEVE. And so it says, here is how in the sanctuary of thieves, secretly behind closed doors, it was answered to all the algebraic eternal X. What is truth? X. The answer was IEVE, and the initiator was explaining geometrically the answer as follows. I is God, theogenic sciences. E is universe, cosmogenic sciences. V, mankind, androgenic sciences. E is earth, physiological sciences. And so there's a couple things that you can notice with here. You can see EVE, the 3, the 1, the 3, you know, man and woman combined make the divine supreme being. But I thought that was just pretty interesting, you know, how it comes to the X, and that is the answer for the truth. I feel like that's one of those things that, you know, if you close your eyes and think about it, then you have an understanding of where this goes. The unknown is the truth. The unknown is all of these things put together would get you an unknown answer, but it's still known. But you guys are like, O.T.G, what are you talking about? That doesn't make sense. It's okay. You're the one here looking for the secrets of inner earth, but you're talking to me like I'm crazy. It's all good, bro. We're going to go to the next one. So it says it's common to knowledge today that within the visible terrestrial substance of plants and animals, only 10 elements remain stable after incineration, while 90 vaporize. It all comes down to a very small number of elements occupying a very small place in the molecular hierarchy. Among gaseous substance, oxygen, hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen. Among solid substances, phosphorus, sulfur, silicon, sodium, potassium, calcium, combined with a little fluorine. Such all these typical molecules so far are ascertained, the Earth delivers to and takes back from the individuals of the two so-called organic regnum, more truly defined as organized from above. This is part of that whole as above, so below. It lets you know that you're a substance. And when you start to talk about God, it had to be a substance or matter or some of the elements. And it shows that even when you die, there's a piece of you left here. Thought that was pretty interesting. It also has a space where it says the Muslims through Muhammad have rather received the legendary tradition of Talmud than the tight chain of initiations that has come to us from the temples of Chaldea and Egypt through the Abrahamids, Moses, and Jesus Christ. I thought that was pretty interesting just in the aspect of Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I know it means the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. But in the time that we stand today, I would like to bear witness that a lot of us would have never heard of the Talmud and the teachings of the Talmud without the teachings of Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I wouldn't be here at the Secrets of Inner Earth without the teachings of Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So, all praise be to Allah for that. And I just thought that was interesting, again, because, we talk about Islam being one of the original religions of all times. And here we have in the Secrets of Inner Earth, the Muslims through Muhammad have rather received the legendary tradition of Talmud. That the tight chain of initiations that has come from the temples of Chaldea, Egypt, through the Abrahamids, Moses, and Jesus Christ. I found that this was pretty interesting as well because it talks about how much time Earth was here before the creation day. So it points to Earth being here a very long time. It says, since the fine series of works inaugurated by Shevin Deer, Kata, Dechen, etc., we conclude that the formation of every meter of coal took an average of 20,000 years, and an estimate more than 10 million years elapsed since the formation of coal. The shrill antiquity of the earth was well known to the learned savants long before Moses, from Etruria and Egypt to India and to the ancient continents now partly gone. The sacerdotal Etruscan savants measured the great cosmic and terrestrial revolutions in 6 immense periods. Think about what we learned about the 6 days. The 6 days being 6 trillion years. Some would say 6 trillion, some would say 6 million, but the math of each year being 1,000 years, and that was the creation period that it took to create the first supreme being, Allah, God. According to the ancient Egyptian data, it is to calculate exactly these periods in the past and the future that the scientists of India, inheritors of the science of Rutus, Atlanteans of Egyptians, and the Reds of America, had astronomically regulated the Kalpa to 4,320,000,000 years, and the Mahayana 4,320,000 Earth years. The Chinese also based their genealogic science on the cycles they received from Hindu, Tibet, and Chaldean Egyptian sanctuaries, but they reduced them as a decimal submultiple to the so-called Chaldean cycle, 432,000 Earth years. So it says, consider the following numbers: 36,000, 432,000, 4,320,000, 4,320,000,000. It will be easily noticed that they come only from the same set of calculations and therefore from the same sources. In fact, the Egyptian cyclic revolution of the fixed stars is exactly the 12th part of that of the Chaldeans and the Chinese. 36,000 times 12 equals 432,000. And the 120th part of the Maya Young of the Hindus. The revolution of fixed stars represented an hour or a month, either of the universe or a single solar tourbillon. This hour of 36,000 years. So when you think of 36,000 years, if we get slave species of the gods and we go into there and we look into the chapter on Nibiru, all right? This is page 87. On page 87, what it says is that hold on, let me make sure. So on page 88, on Planet X, think about what we had as the answer. Planet X. As the answer of IVE. Roman numeral X. So now when we go here, we have that Alessandro Morbidelli, a French astronomer, who in 2003 dared to suggest that there may be a large planet way beyond Pluto, which is on an elongated elliptical orbit around the sun that lasts about 3,600 years. So think about 3,600 years in orbit, 3,600 years that they have on here. Maybe I'm just adding stuff up. I'm just saying. Just think about that. It says the Mahayuga was the decade of this cosmogonic day or cosmogonic year, namely 432,000 times 10, 4,320,000. The Kalpa represented 1,000 divine decades, or 4,320,000, 4,320,000,000, terrestrial years. Therefore, 10,000 hours, 10,000 days, or 10,000 years of the universal being, according to the cosmogonic object of observation. Say that one more time. What do we say? 10,000 hours makes you a master. 10,000 days or 10,000 years of the universal being. Remember what I told you? We're going to get to that later, though. According to the cosmogonic object of observation. Let's keep going. This is Secrets of Inner Earth. Kind of laid back today, just breezing through. A lot of people talk about the floods, right? So check this out. It says there was 6 floods in history. It says they ascertained the total duration of terrestrial humanity should be 14 manus. Manus means human. Manu means human. That is 168,000 years. A period equaling a 4 fixed star revolution plus 2 manus. According to their calculations and those of the Egyptians. According to them, we have reached the 7th Manu of the 4th age, Kali Yuga, the Golden Age, which would give terrestrial humanity an antiquity of 80,000 years through 6 past deluges. So remember, Manu means human. Manu means human. And so it's saying right now that humans lived through 6 deluges. 6 deluges, which a deluge means a flood. Manu is like a It says the archetypal first man of Hindu mythology, survivor of the Great Flood, and father of the human race. So understand that. So it's saying there was 6 great floods, and this is the 7th reiteration of man right now. This is from a guy from 1884, I believe, 1884. It says the cause of ancient priests assigned to deluges was astronomical and geological, both correlated to universal moral causes. The temple savants had asserted that the physical law at the origin of deluges was the shift of Earth's magnetic axis, the successive rise and lowering of each pole causing a sudden rupture of equilibrium and the underground fire, disease in the atmosphere, and the regard unexpected discoveries would be made by digging the underground of some lands such as the Sahara, Great Tartary, and above all, what remains of the astral continents. What's funny is that right now they say we're going through a pole switch. We're going through a pole switch, which would mean, and they said for the next 10 years to 2030, we could see high waters, high waters. Could this be the 7th deluge? Who knows? Let's go. I told you I wanted to touch back on this guy being a man thing that they knew. You know, they knew the whole time. So here's one of the secrets. Here's one of the secrets of inner earth. I have affirmed that the scientific notion of the oneness of the living God had been the supreme reward of this series of intellectual and psychological efforts. Professional education and instruction was provided by what the ancient Italians called the gens, and the Chinese the jin, meaning by the tribe, in the ancient and little known sense of this term. More complete studies analogous to our secondary instruction reserved for the adult were the task of the temples and were named lesser mysteries. Now check this out. Check this out. They called this the Holy Trinity. Think of this. So they say you started as a jinn and you learned from your parents. Now it says those who had, after numerous years, acquired the natural human knowledge of the lesser mysteries earned the title of son of the woman, of Heru, son of man, and were granted certain social powers such as all branches of therapeutics or the meditation between the governing leaders or the arbitral justice, etc., etc. The greater mysteries completed these teachings by another higher hierarchy of science. Hierarchy of sciences and associated technical arts, whose attainment gave the initiate the title of Son of the Gods or Son of God, according to the temple's rank, rural or metropolitan, in addition to certain social powers called sacerdotal and royal. So think about that. In that book, it says that is the Holy Trinity, is reaching the different levels of knowledge, starting off as a jinn, which in, what we know as a spirit, could be evil or good in Islam as a lesser mystery, then becoming a son of woman or son of man, and then graduating to a son of a god, the greater mystery. This is the alleged secrets of inner earth, Agartha. It says ancient civilizations had technology, had theories of colors and sound phenomenon had been condensed into their true musical laws, to their real arithmetic and geometric progressions. With regard to optics, they learned masters knew of and used of all instruments, mirrors, concave and convex lenses, conic prisms, dark room, Catoptric, I messed it up, apparatus, microscopes, telescopes. A glimpse of these facts can be found in the writings of Cicero, Seneca, Alugil, Jamblique, as well as in recent archaeological discoveries. Acoustics were geometrically applied on earth and underground in temples, theaters, hypogeia, and great precision and prodigious power. As for music, it would be impossible for me without writing a special volume to show how far it had been carried, not only as an art, but as an absolute science of method or analogy of universal key. What remains today of their astronomy and architecture suffice to demonstrate the mathematical and mechanical deep knowledge of the priests who were the initiating masters of Pythagoras, Archimedes, Ctesias, Heron, Architect, etc. So these guys had, from what I was reading, they had electricity. That's what they were saying, lightning from the heavens were and fire from the heavens. They had set up lightning rods and water. And I said that they had light, electricity, that we know they had pyrotechnics, so they knew how to fight with fire and they knew how to utilize steam. So with that, think about that, just our understanding. So a guy named Diodorus certifies he learned from priests of Egypt that they had proof of a complete social structure established well before the time of Menes and having lasted 18,000 years until Horus. Manetho, an Egyptian priest, reveals a meticulously recorded chronology originating at the time of Menes, taking us back to 6,883 years before the present year of 1883 AD. 5,000 years BC. Moreover, Manetho records that even before King Menes, viceroy of India and Egypt, several immense cycles of civilization has succeeded each other on Earth and in Egypt itself. That goes to our brother Horace Butler and the multiple Egypts. And also what we were saying, if you were part of our prior conversations, that Egypt had multiple civilizations, and the one that we like to tie ourselves to is more of a white Egypt. But we'll get into that in a second. Just think about this, how this folds back. This is in 1883. So what we have is a systematic destruction of ancient documents. We're on episode 3. I appreciate you guys for listening. We're going through the secrets of inner earth right now. So there was a systematic way of destruction of ancient documents. It says Rome, the last offshoot of this arbitrary empire, spent its time obliterating the religious and social history of previous nations. In 51 BC, the Bruchian Library of Alexandria, which contains 700,000 volumes, most of them written in Egyptian, was torched. It was the same spirit of Nimrod and by no means Christianity that inspired the destruction of Gnostic encyclopedias. It was the same mania of ignorant and brutal domination that armed with torches the monks in Ireland, who burned 10,000 manuscripts and runic characters carved on birch bark containing the recorded traditions and annals. So this just lets you know that it goes into deep detail about the systematic destruction of all of historic and ancient antiquity documents, and I said it was done purposeful. The purpose of this book so far, when I start to get through it, was to tell Europe that they would never have access and the world would never be right until they stop the ways of war and different things of that nature. You know, I don't want to tell the whole book, but it's a warning. It's a warning. So it says gives you some time before the creation of Adam and Eve, of alleged Moses, that there was people there. The first 5 books. So there was already history of people on the earth for centuries before the white man. So it says, at the time one finds a sovereign at the head of an immense civilization dating back nearly 600 centuries, 60,000 years, before the supposedly biblical date of creation. And in that same book, we learn about the crowned heads of 2 social orders installed 8,500 years back from the actual time I'm writing these lines, 1880 AD. They rule in colossal cities, Iota, metropolis of the solar dynasty, whose diameter was 60 kilometers, and Prachishi Tanas, seat of the lunar dynasty, built on the same scale. Certainly in the cycle of civilization, the unity of humankind and the universe, the unity of the universe in God, the unity of God and himself, were taught not as a primitive, obscure, and obscurantist superstition, but as the luminous, dazzling crown of a quadruple hierarchy of sciences animating an organic cult of which Sabbahism was the form. So it's talking about India right now. If you look at the top, it says red race. Let's get into the secret of Adam and the races. It's kind of crazy. I got this movie called Black Adam coming out, you know? It says, let's move on to Adam's hierogram. It is enough to read the word by which the Samaritan writers translated, meaning the universal, the infinite. It is easy to spot this hierogram. Adam is not about an individual self-made man such as presented by the Septuagint and the Vulgate. Adam is thus the universal man, or the universe itself comprehended as an animated being. With regard to the varieties of the physical human species, it is in Europe that we must look for the origin of the white race. In Asia, that of the yellow race. In Africa, that of the black race. In the austral continent, engulfed by the last great flood, the original place of the primeval red race, of which the American Indians are but remnants, refugees, troglodyte on the mountaintops. Think about that. I'm not even going to go into that one. I'm going to just let that cook for you. That's right here, you know, I found it pretty interesting how it got into Hebrew, but then it said the people. You know, it says, why is this language not in Hebrew? Because the Hebrew word, which meant immigrant, alludes to a mixed crowd of expatriate people, not to a language, which each group must inevitably have lost. The Hebrew people, a group of men and women of different races, instituted as one nation by Moses, later in time lost in 70 years of captivity in Babylon, its Egyptian Phoenician language, and adopted Syriac, Aramaic, and Chaldaic dialect. Therefore, knowing that they stayed in Egypt more than 400 years, where no institution had united them in a national body, one cannot accept that this people, or rather this group of tribes of white, black, and red races, had not lost their original dialects, mixture of primitive Celtic language with ancient idioms. You know, and this is coming from a white man who allegedly learned this from an Indian guy from Inner Earth. So there's going to be some things that's tilted straight to the Indians, and there's going to be some things that's still kind of racist, but I just still want to break down the 4 races and a lot of the different similarities of things that we learned that this guy's saying in 1980 when he wrote this book. So he talks about whites stealing from black people, from the black nation. And notice that he calls it the black race. And this is in 1880. It follows from foregoing there is no mistaking in seeing like Moses and the Hebrews, as in the Arabs and the Bedouins and Berbers, the Celts, Bodhoans, the wandering Scyths evoked by the ancient authors. Moreover, all these peoples have acquired in the south and west of Europe many original signs and symbols as irrefutably testified by linguistics, anthropology, and archaeology. As for the idioms so improperly called Semitic, they are today, in the view of all scientists, the result of one of the first fixtures made between the dialects of the white race and those of the black race, with predominance of the latter. Immigrants, not conquerors, but followers of the male principle, persecuted, hunted after bloody battles by the College of Druids, the Bodhon Celts followed two different routes, which both led them to the kingdoms, empires of the colonies of the black race, then masters of the world and in full civilization bloom. So it says that these white men came and stole from black people. You know, it says here that the absorption of immigrants into Egypt, Libya, Ethiopia, Persia, India, Arabia, Syria, Crimea was slow, without brutality, and imprinted upon the ancestors of the Hebrews and Arabs the stamp of the black civilization, then sovereign. However, due to the social character of the institutions, the white tribes, while mingling with the black families, preserved their independence, their Celtic commune, their tribunal of the ancients, and many customs, many other memories that never were entirely obliterated. Everything about science, applied, technical arts, and crafts was borrowed from the black GMBGN culture. And if the dialects were admixed, kept many Celtic words and roots, the writing and its direction were entirely borrowed from local temple universities of the black race. This fact proves that besides the cult of the ancestor in the home, immigrants had no priesthood. Apart from heads of families of leaders of tribes, here's why. At the time, science, applied art, religion were one and the same thing, whose principles of unity had clearly been determined. So it essentially says that white people work for black people, and that everything they had, they stole from the black nations. They didn't have anybody to teach them anything. So at this point in time, they were being taught by the black races. It says the black race, attracted by the rich mineral resources, had treated the white race as the white race had treated the Reds of America since Christopher Columbus. This conquest and its purpose were imprinted in the minds of European barbarians as the idea of evil par excellence, which for our race remains attached to the very evocation of the South Pole. Sat, Seth, Sothis, Saturn, Sathan, South. Hell, as imagined by the theologians, was born in the bowels of our continent, where under the eye of the black engineer or the black foreman, the white man smashed the rocks, dug the galleries, searched the earth, extracted the ore, and carried it to the victor's furnaces. But the Europeans had an advantage: the shelter of the forest, the shield of extremely cold climate. There, able to retreat, he could still go on the attack. I try to tell you, they know. They know. It says, marked by the stamp of the Europeans who had received before these exoduses the infusion of the blood of the black race on the shores of the Atlantic or those of the Mediterranean. Where is Patmos? These people who long after this infusion formed the Latin and Greek groups, joining Armenians, Phrygians, or the Caucasus, Tauridians, Afghans, Jebers, Armenians, Phoenicians, Egyptians, etc., will present undeniable anatomical, chronoscopic, physiognomic analogies, as well as with the Hebrews and the Arabs. Just letting you know, it's got a whole part on the Black nation. It says the power of the Black civilization. Noticeably, the Black race, which thousands of years before the exodus of the Bodhomes had covered the earth with grandiose cities carved in the rock, had no such Celtic habits of displaying raw stones. The Black race rulers employed hundreds of thousands of white and yellow peoples, either to carve the Caucasus or the Himalayas, the rocks of the Nile Valley, or those of Hindustan and Ceylon, or to cover the hills with gigantic square cities surrounded by formidable walls colossal enough to sustain large buildings. The Cyclopean ruins of El Khan still gave little idea of the power of the palace, the engineering resources of Jian bin Jian, the Black nation. And one can find these vestiges even in their ancient naval stations in the northwest of Europe. The previous data explain why the Celts has since hated the giant architectural stonework, a hatred the tradition changed into religious superstition. Their only shelters were forests, where the military tactics of the Blacks, like their cavalry and their war machines, became powerless. For the Geoboreum, every wall, every organized big city was the affirmation of the spirit of the South, the work of the enemy power. Think about that. That's why they like destruction so much. And why, when you look at all those old buildings, our faces are broke off. What makes sense, huh? But what do I know? And what do we know? It's just some old white man writing what some Indians told him, you know? Here's some proof of the Black hate that they hate Black men. It's just been embedded into them. It says, and the Black priest engineer with his commander staff was sending to the quarries and the mines the white men with blue eyes, the tattooed giants, grumbling under harsh discipline, like lions, that until the time of Aristotle and even that of Nibelungen still inhabited our wooded mountains. Many thousands of years before Moses' time, the Bodhomes Celts in Spain, Italy, Greece, and Caucasus Hiberia remained faithful to the ancient protestation of the white race against the ancient civilizations, meaning that they hate the ancient civilizations. Many thousands of years before Moses. Remember, they were sent to the cave and they were there 2,000 years before Moses came. Just saying. From the Red Man, here's his this overall is from the Red Man, but this is his direct. He says, 8,600 years ago, the situation of the people of the Black race, Jian bin Jian, and that of the white race, Celt Gaborium, was respectively as follows. Pushed back from almost all the coast of Europe where they had established settlements of mixed races, the Black Jian bin Jian remained entirely masters of Asia and Africa. Their principal colonies were Egypt, Asia Minor, ancient Taurida, China before Fohai, Japan, Persia before Iran, Tibet, etc. Their metropolitan center was Ethiopia, as long as the red race had lived and dominated the earth with all the splendor of its civilization. So essentially it's saying the Black race had Ethiopia. That was its space, and it also had Asia Minor, Taurida, China, Japan, Persia, Iran, Persia, and Tibet. Just more proof that they know Black people have been here way before they tell you. This is a guy in 1880. I thought this was interesting how it said feminism was inbred, white feminism. It said the war of the sexes started with white people. It says this all-female people expatriated as a result of the civil wars in which the two sexes of the white race had fought for religious power, had adopted a cult founded on their hatred for men, governed by a queen. Just like the bees, they accepted men only as prisoners of war or slaves in their harems. Pretty crazy, huh? White women been hating white men for a long time. Now, this is from The Secret to Inner Earth book. I just grabbed some things that I thought were pretty interesting. It said, at the time as I write these lines, all the teaching bodies of the world mark their ages in the following manner. Those of Muhammad, 1264. Those of Jesus Christ, 1886. Those of Moses, 5647. Finally, those of Manu. Remember, that's human, the survivor of the deluge, restarter of life, 55,647. I seen this, I thought this was super interesting. It said the purpose is the glorification of God and man, and then of man and God. And this divine term toward which universal religion, through all its denominations and cults, is leading you, is identical to the term that science on its highest peaks of enlightenment, delivered unto itself, will eventually finally see again by verifying faith. When we read the Book of God, that said that was one of the secret of all ages by Manly P. Hall, that's what all secret societies find out, that God is in man and man is in God. You're one and the same. Here's something else I found interesting. It said, man is a reed, the weakest in nature, but a Pascal noted he is a thinking reed. As a finishing touch, I will add an accent of certitude to the sorrowful whisper of this desperate believer. Man is a cosmogonic mind, the most powerful in the universe. He exists as the living reflection of the deity, visible and invisible at the same time. His feet rest on the empire of the demons, and at his head is Christ above all the angels, who is the eternal Logos made flesh. So then, just what is the thought that leads to science, and what is the science that leads to wisdom? Liberty, equality, fraternity, the great Ramid, Abramite, and Christian phrase, expressed in Telemuchus by Fenelon, would have been an erudite and religious as it was social, if only greater pains had been taken to understand and develop it rather than distort it by exploiting it politically. There can only be freedom in unbounded space, and the limitless space of the human mind is nothing other than the mind of God. There can only be equality in one same law of harmony, and this law of harmony embraces the constitution of the entire social body. There is no fraternity possible unless freedom and equality are understood in this way. But all of this is precisely the opposite of the mutual anarchy of political governments and the egotistical brutality that presides not only over the relations of Christian peoples with each other, but over the relations of colonial regime toward other continents and other communities of believers. Liberty, equality, and fraternity. And another part of the book that says that this was also the Trinity. It mentions the Trinity multiple times. So liberty, equality, fraternity. So think about that. I know that I thought I seen this, and there's a lot of mention of Afghanistan, but I thought of this just with going to war. It says, sire, have caution when touching Afghanistan, and do not advance into the territory of these Amphisydions without pronouncing the ancient password of the kingdom of God. It's pretty crazy, right? You think we was there 20 years and didn't win. And why were we there? Could we been there looking for Shamballa? Who knows, right? It says we can even find traces in these Caucasian populations of the ancient black race, amalgamated with the white, and some princes make no secret of a genealogy going back to the Abramites and even to the Celtic Bardhans. So it says you can find in Caucasian people traces of the black race. You know, this is just a white guy from 1880, but think about what Yakub said. Recessive traits. Let's keep going. This is some just random paragraphs of these books that I pulled out that I thought was very interesting. Moses himself urged his initiates to listen to the teachings of this council, and Jethro was one of the pontiffs who remained faithful to the scientific tradition. Finally, even in the Hebrew text of the New Testament, we find the name of Agartha to head of each of the epistles, not to mention a good many other passages. Here, the veil of the covenant of the ancient Israel with Mosaic Israel is lifted no more than it is appropriate. Likewise, the first Christian initiation with the University Temple of Paradisia. So I thought this was interesting because, you know, Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that when Moses went to the mountains to bring the Caucasian out, tame the savage and the devil, he took one book of arithmetic. It was 59,999 left. And I thought that this was pretty interesting how it said that people's interpretation of the Bible was childish, and a lot of this was Moses talking to the Council of 24 Sciences and Inner Earth, and that he was extremely well knowledged, and that, you know, he looked weak and small. But that's a whole nother subject. It just kind of goes again to the testament of one book and how smart Moses was, but still took one book. And it also lets you know how they traced back and was able to build off the Yacubian thought process, you know? It says, within the most ancient university of Earth resides the authority who stands as guarantor of the oldest tradition of antiquity, and of all concerning that I have said elsewhere, above all intellectual and social formation of the cycle of the Lamb and Aries. So that is pretty dope. That kind of ties into the World King, you know what I mean? Saying that the World King is real. This says what's inside of the inner city of Agartha. It says there's a million of Dvijas, twice born in yogis, one with God, form the great circle or semicircle rather that we are about to enter. They inhabit entire cities. These municipalities are in the entire suburbs of Agartha, symmetrically divided and portioned out in constructions that are mostly underground. Above them and heading towards the center, we find 5,000 pundits, Pandavan scholars, some among whom indeed provide the service of teaching, while others serve as soldiers of the interior police or the police of the five gates. Their number of 5,000 corresponds to the number of Hermetic roots of the Vedic language. Each root is itself a magic herogram connected to a celestial power with the sanction of an infernal power. Agartha in entirety is a faithful image of the eternal logos throughout the whole of creation. After the pundits, we next find divided into semicircles of increasingly reduced size the solar circumscriptions of the 365 Bhagwandas, cardinals. So I thought that was pretty interesting because that covers what's inside. It says what's inside the inner circle and semicircles. You know, this is from the Secrets of Inner Earth. We don't know if this guy went. He said this came from a guy who just showed up. He had two visitors who came to teach him from inner earth. He spent his life trying to find it, you know? And that's what we got. We got some of these secrets and different things from a couple of his books. So check this out. What I'm about to relate both here and throughout the book will seem like a story straight from 1001 Nights. Yet nothing could be more real. The actual university archives of Paradisia occupy thousands of miles. For cycles of many centuries, several high initiates possessing the secrets of only certain religions and knowing the true purpose of certain works have been obliged, beginning each year, to spend 3 years carving on stone tablets all the facts concerning the four hierarchies of sciences forming the total corpus of knowledge. Remember what we read from the Book of God. Each one of these scholars performs his work in solitude, far from any visible light, beneath the cities, deserts, plains, or mountains. The reader should picture in his mind a colossal chessboard that extends under the Earth's surface to cover almost every region of the globe. All the splendors of humanity's time on Earth can be found in each square of this chessboard. And some squares, the encyclopedias of the centuries and millennia are located, while in others, lastly, are those of the major and minor yugas. On the day when Europe finally replaces the anarchy of its general government with Trinitarian synarchy, all of these marvels, as well a good many others, will become spontaneously accessible to the representatives of its first Asynionic chamber, the Chamber of Teaching. But until then, woe to the curious and the careless who endeavor to scour the earth. So what I wanted to do, just by going through that, you know, one of the reoccurring themes is just you got to find yourself in history and you got to look in between the lines. You know, what I read in there is that, you know, we have been lied to for a very long time. That we have millions of years of history, and most of it probably was destroyed. And that, you know, throughout history, everything that we were taught and given now is probably watered down, because it was watered down at the time of the gentleman writing the book in 1880. But what we do know is that in 1880, a white man wrote about the Black nation. And there's so many similarities to what Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us. Again, you know, white people being created on you know, the story of Yakub, the red man, the brown man, the white man, you know, understanding the true history of Moses, the 24 sciences, the world king, the book of knowledge, you know, Black people building everything. I thought that was pretty amazing. We built pretty much everything on the earth, you know, and that the white man hates it when he sees big stone walls and things of that nature. They hate it. It's a reminder. It's a reminder of the work they had to do. You know, so I think when you look in between the lines and you see yourself, think all these Black women out here with white feminism, but we see that the battle of the sexes isn't even something that Black people, you know, white people don't even attest to us, but now it's tied to us. You know, I like to look through these things and just get an understanding of different things and how they work. You know, get an understanding of how, just trying to see us in history, you know, looking in between the lines. And I think this should help you be yourself and accept your own, you know, have an understanding that this is you. Right? This picture that I have here that's super blurry is inside of one of the World Heritage sites right outside of the caves of the Caucasus Mountains. And as usual, what do you see? A black man in the middle, you know? Black woman, second self of God. Black man, you're a God. You know? If you would like to get more information, you know, make sure you tap in NOI.org, scroll all the way down to the bottom. Make sure you hit the Nations program. You can sign up, get stuff sent right to your email. If you want to put my number in, you can register with 250-491. You know, you can hit 7xotg.com to join the Discord, learn more about me, buy any books, anything of that nature. blackisgod.net to find out more information. blackisgod.store. Get your detox teas and your detox baths. You know, I believe you can. We got Navy beans up there now. OTG123.org. Get all the information about Overtime Grind. OTGSafeSpaces.com to join the Clubhouse group. And man, it's the secrets of Inner Earth, Agartha. It's pretty interesting stuff. If you want to get the book, you got to join the Telegram or join the Patreon. I will definitely have the book up there. The 2 books for everybody in the group, everybody who wants it, my true supporters. You know, I think it's definitely worth a read. It's pretty interesting stuff, man. Pretty interesting stuff. And again, like I say, if you're a black person, you better align. You know, better align and get on the right side. Every day, I'm going to keep just showing you how the teachings are right and exact, you know? So I like to end this in the name of Allah, the Beneficent and Merciful. I like to bear witness there is no God but Allah. Muhammad is his messenger. And I like to greet you all with the words of Assalamu alaikum. Peace be on you. It's Overtime Grind, another day, another dollar. Black is God podcast. Black man is God. Black woman is God. Allah is God. All praise due to Allah for everybody. Thank you. Share, like, follow, subscribe, all that cool stuff. It's O.T.G. You already know, bro. You already know.